Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Canon Fodder. It's Friday, and
Hey,
Friday means it's the Easy Talk. Not only that, it's 600 videos has been uploaded on Canon Fodder TV. We've got a full house. We've got the Minister of Information. We've got the Godfather himself, and we've got VOR. What does VOR mean, Ralph?
VOR. You
Yeah.
know what it means, man. The
What
voice
do
of
you mean?
reason.
Oh,
It's
the
the
voice of
guy.
reason.
It's me.
Oh, right, okay.
It's Arsenal.
There you go. So it's the Easy Talk. That's all I've got to say. Yeah, we've got a full house. We're full house, and we're
can I
celebrating.
have a button that makes that happen?
No, you can't. There's only one button.
I can see it now every time Terry goes down the high road. Right, that's it. Yeah.
Press the button. I want one of them buttons.
There can only be one button, otherwise it'll be mayhem.
You are the button master. You are the button master.
Right, so it's the Easy Talk, and it's a very special segment or episode because it's the 600th video on Canon Fodder TV. You want to say something very quickly, Ralph, my co-host?
Well, first and foremost, to all the subscribers, you know, you've put us on this platform, you supported us. Much love and respect. As you can tell, it's not really very easy to do this kind of platform. We've got so many people who you know, made our channel the channel that it is. I have to obviously give massive props to Alex, because it's his brainchild, as it were. And I just supported and just dipped in now and again. I've dropped the ball a couple of times. Thanks, IG, for telling me that. But we've got many people to thank. Down this side, that's the point, this side, Original Godfather. We've got James. James, fantastic, amazing work with ex-footballers from Arsenal and literally the football universe, as it were. Indian IG. This guy is amazing with his information and the statisticians and everything else. I mentioned the Godfather. Godfather knows all, sees all. He knows all about the dark arts. If you want to know about the dark, this is the guy. This is the guy. He knows all about the dark arts.
I'm the master of the dark arts.
You are the master. Darth Vader's got nothing on you.
No, doesn't come near it.
So,
You should see me below the waist. Actually, don't.
well, let's just leave that there. But then there's other guys as well. There's a guy called, I remember when I came on, there's a guy called Adam. There's DJ Fury. There's LILMAZY. There's Colin. MOBAY GOONER with his Hennessy. Wherever you are, MOBAY, have a couple of them on us. Richard, wherever you are as well, you know, God bless you and everything else that you do. There's been so many. Alex will be able to tell you exactly how many there are. Like I said, I just come in and out and I support when I can. But everyone on this platform, to you guys, much appreciated, much love. And I think we might do a little cheeky giveaway as well towards the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Why not have a little cheeky giveaway?
I can't wait.
Are those cupcakes?
It might be the until fine. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yay!
I'm not forgetting all those guys that that's come on our channel as well. It's just many. Ash, back to you, love. Back to you.
Okay. All right. So just actually before we get into the topic, I wanted to ask Ralph, what has been your highlight of Canon Fodder TV so far? What should be your highlight?
Man, I think it's just the way that we've managed to get so many contributors to the channel, and it's the quality as well. From just being a little voice out there and trying to reach out to our other supporters. It doesn't matter what the color is. We know it's red and white. No matter how it changes, it's Arsenal. So it's Arsenal family. As I mentioned before, when you've got James on, what the guy knows, I mean, what he knows compared to me, I feel I don't know that much. I've got lots of history, I say, behind me and what I collected and where I've been. But when you come across a guy called like James and Terry and IG, it's insurmountable, the amount of information. So for me, it's just a continuing growing family, as it were. We're a really good bunch of family guys. We're fans. We love the team. But to get on this platform and share, I feel very honoured.
Yeah, I think I echo that as well. I think for me, the highlight has been meeting people, quite literally meeting people and talking to people. I think back in the early days, as I was telling James, actually going out, to the stadium and interviewing people in the cold of night, and having my wife in the early days, filming, it was quite difficult. But for me, the highlight has been meeting wonderful people and sharing the one common thing, which has been Arsenal on Cannon Fodder TV.
I can remember when I first met you, and it must have been fairly early on with the Cannon Fodder thing. And do you remember you lost your red headphones?
Oh,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we scoured this room at school to find them, and we found them anyway in the end, didn't we? And you said to me, I said, they're nice Arsenal red, and you said, well, I've got an Arsenal station, channel. And then you started interviewing me and Simon, schoolkeeper at the school, and I don't know how long you'd been going before that, but that must have been fairly early on, was it? By the Tony Adams statue,
It was really early in the day, really early. So, guys, thank you for your undivided support, all the subscribers and followers. But listen, guys, we've got some topics to talk about, and the first topic we wanted to talk about was, what was the first game that Arsenal played that kind of captured your imagination, and where the point where you actually began to support Arsenal? James, I'm going to go to you first, James.
You want to? Okay. Well, then I'll start with my very, very first game. I went with my family to Arsenal Crystal Palace in February 1991, and it was a 4-0 win in the season that we won the league. And I can still remember who scored. In the fact, it was I think O'Leary, Smith, Merson, and Campbell. And it kind of really encapsulated me, really, going to Highbury in those days and to the East Stand and seeing them live, and just because I used to collect all the little kind of scrapbooks and all the little bits of information that I could, and going to watch them live for the first time, and then kind of having the hunger to watch them on television and kind of go as I was growing up, and always having the shirts, and even now, to be so fortunate to be in a position to live in another country and fly back for games every now and again is very special. But the club is a huge part of my life, and as my partner always says, a big part of who I am. And I'd finally like to I'd like to also take this opportunity, guys, to congratulate you both on the 600th video today. As I've said before with Alex on the messages, there are over 1 million different podcasts worldwide. Millions, a whole million. And very few have the standard, especially in terms of Arsenal, that you guys have. So you can be very, very proud of what you've achieved. It's been a long old road. And my response is keep it up, because there's so many that want to be seen, want to be heard, where it's all about the views or the clicks and that kind of thing. And a lot of them forget the quality. So you guys have done a tremendous job, and thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed every single one. Great to be on tonight to share the occasion with you both, and also with Terry and IG. So I say very well done to you both, and keep up the good work.
Cheers, much appreciated. IG, what was the first game that you can remember that kind of captured your imagination and started you to support Arsenal?
Well, just like a lot of French players are drawn to Arsenal just because of one man, Thierry Henry. I think he was my hero. It was a game in the season 2006-2007. We were fourth in the league, and the January of 2007, we had Arsenal versus Manchester United at the Emirates. And we had the way Manchester United were playing. Wayne Rooney scored the first goal, 53rd minute, and it was looking really difficult to actually get back into the game. But we won that game. I think Van Persie and Thierry Henry scored the winner during the. After I think 90 plus 3 minutes, it was a header. It was an unbelievable. I think that goal completely changed my whole. The way I started liking Arsenal a lot, and I started following them. So I think Thierry Henry and this game was the turning point in my life.
Okay. Original Godfather.
Hey. Well, if I put my first game in context, it wasn't actually my first game. I did go to one when I was very little, but it was bitterly cold. Arsenal beat Tottenham 1-0, but I was more worried about going somewhere warm after the game. But if you can imagine, when I grew up in Highbury, just about 5 or 6 minutes walk from the ground, obviously there wasn't the worldwide following, or it wasn't as strong as it is now. People did come to work in London and then go off to different parts of the world. But you kind of bumped into Arsenal people all the time. And England had just won the World Cup. And up to then, like most young kids, I was more interested in playing football. And anyway, England had won the World Cup, and a big Tottenham friend of mine said to me, let's go and watch Arsenal versus Spurs. And he kept saying, and it was in September 66. So it was just after the World Cup. And anyway, strolled there, nice late summer's afternoon, and we were at the clock end, and he kept kind of annoying me and saying, you're an Arsenal fan. And I said, well, listen, I don't mind who wins. I just want to see a good game of football. And then he kept on. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll support the team that wins today. And it was the day that George Graham got married. Terry Venables was his best man. And I'll never forget, in the first half, Terry Neal scored with a penalty. And then in the second half, Arsenal scored 3. Graham scored 1 on his wedding day. He probably scored twice on his wedding day, but that's a different story. And Arsenal ran out 4-0 winners. And I loved it. I couldn't believe it. I just was mad for it. And we played Man City at home the following Tuesday. And one of the guys in my estate was an Arsenal fan, and he said he'd bring me. So I remember going to see Man City, but those 2 games, especially the 4-0 win against Tottenham, and just as a sidelight to that era, because that was the beginning of the build-up towards the Fairs Cup team and then the 71 double team. The big thing at the time was that northern clubs are really strong. The sort of Everton's, Man United and all of those teams were strong. Man City was strong as well. And Leeds especially were growing in strength. And the big thing in the papers was that could a Southern team, Southern Softies, ever challenge for the league title? And I'm pleased to say Arsenal did. And so it was a big thing back in those days. But yeah, that game, September 1966. And yeah, and I was just going to say, it's really nice to be part of the Arsenal family. I met a guy a few years ago. In fact, I met him no more than about 3 months ago, and unfortunately, he's passed away now in Ireland, an elderly man. And I said to him, he told me he lived in Highbury and he lived in London, and he was a retired man back in Ireland and everything. And he said, I went to see the Manchester United Arsenal match a few days before the plane crash, the Munich plane crash, where so many of the guys died, you know. And he said it was 5-4 to Manchester United, but he said it was a fantastic match. So one of the lovely things about being in the Arsenal family is that you kind of meet these people. Almost anywhere you go, people have an Arsenal story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ralph.
Man, the very, very first match that I fell in love with Arsenal was the 1971 FA Cup final. Now, I had, I was about 7, 8. I had no real concept about FA Cups, to be perfectly honest. In England, football is pretty much like your first love, as it were, or cricket, depending on in your household. And actually, as you know, our dad was a mad cricket, but also he did love Liverpool as well. He loved Liverpool. And in our household, Saturday morning, Wembley was an all-day affair. You saw the 2 teams, and they're in their respective hotels, and then they have all the interviews, and then they have the coach going towards Wembley, and then the countdown. Well, I missed most of that. I was out in the street playing football. But in Richmond Avenue, which is not very far from the stadium, our street had bunting, and the bunting was of the colours yellow and blue, because that was the away kit that Arsenal was playing in. And a friend of mine, if I remember his first name, I'd be lying to you, but his surname was Turner. His parents owned a pub in Richmond Avenue, and the pub was decked out in red and white and yellow and blue bunting. And my head was like, "Well, what's going on? I don't understand." Anyway, my dad said, "Ralph, come downstairs. The match is about to start." Went downstairs. My mum and our mum and our dad were both like arguing who's gonna win. So my dad said, "Look, Liverpool's gonna win. They're the strong team at the time." My mum was saying, "No, Arsenal's gonna win. Put your hands up if you support Arsenal. If you want to support Arsenal." So I put my hand up. Instantly put my hand up. Alex was in his crib, so he had no recollection of this. But no. I put my hand up, and she said, "Right, we're going to win." And I didn't think we was going to win. Stevie Highway scored the first goal.
Yeah.
And I was shaking my head and I was thinking, "Oh man, like, what's going on here?" And then I believe George Graham got the equaliser, and then went to extra time. I went back upstairs, and you can hear some people out in the streets. And then my dad called me again for a second time and said, "Ralph, come downstairs, something's about to happen." So I got downstairs, and just as I got downstairs, the pass was laid on for Charlie George. And Charlie George struck that ball, man. It went like a rocket. When he laid down, I was thinking, like, is that the way you celebrate? But he celebrated, he was so knackered. He was so knackered. I should say, when we met him afterwards, not after, but we met him last year, he was tired. He said he went down because he was physically tired. But to me, that epitomized the team. It was such a great day. It was sunny. It was a beautiful day. The tops now pretty much resemble like the Brazilian tops of the 70s as well. You know what I mean? So that, to me, that's when I fell in love with Arsenal.
Oh, okay.
Lovely.
Well, for me personally, just a few years a little bit further on, in 1978, we were about to embark on an FA Cup final against Ipswich. And I remember clearly where I was. I was in primary school days, and we went on a school trip to Butlins, which is a seaside resort back in the day. And I was sharing a chalet with I can remember my friend's name. It was Michael Lewis, who I remember very well.
Michael Lewis.
And Floyd Kennedy. So Michael Lewis was a definite Arsenal supporter, and Floyd is an ardent Liverpool supporter. And so just by chance in the chalet, we put on the TV, and the FA Cup final was just about to start. Well, we lost 1-0. But for me, whenever Arsenal were playing and we got into the FA Cup finals, it was like a big celebration. And even at that time, for West Indian people, we were seeped in cricket, seeped into West Indian cricket, because in 75, West Indies had just won the World Cup, and in 79, they won the second World Cup. But for me, the turning point where I actually started to support Arsenal was in the FA Cup final, 78, when we actually lost to Ipswich Town. And the rest, as I say, is history. That's me. That's me. What else did we want to talk about? Yes, guys, the second topic, because like time's gone very, very quickly. What has been for you guys the worst game so far this season? Ralph.
Oh, jeez. You know what?
I know you can pick from so many. Many.
As an Arsenal fan, for the last few weeks since been on lockdown, I've been clearing out my room, and I've got I've got about 3 boxes of newspaper cuttings and I always kept the ones that when we won. I don't like keeping stuff when we lose, because to me it's like a negative energy. I know you can use it positively, but it's negative. So I always like keep the positive ones. But ever since we moved into the stadium, into the Emirates, and maybe for the first year, I used to keep a lot of magazines. I get a lot of magazines, Arsenal magazine, and the team that we had was so ready for this season. We're going back this season. I have to say I was gutted at the Olympiacos, the 2-1, because it was like our kind of chance to try and get into the top 4. There was other matches in between then that's always seemed to like wound us up, or we always seem to be the team that feels that no matter what the opposition is, we've got a right to go in and just do a number and get out. We don't have that steel anymore. There's a match. I did share the tweet. I'm not sure if you got it, Alex. It was Arsenal versus Man United, and we beat Man United 1-0. This is like 89 or 90 season, and it was the one where there's fisticuffs, and there was two of the Arsenal players got heavy fines, as well as the manager, George Graham. We don't have that kind of steel. Always said we don't have that kind of steel. That Olympiacos result just showed it. We just seem to take it just for granted that we're gonna steamroller them, and then when it came with that last minute winner, it literally just I didn't want to see anything else related to Arsenal for a good couple of days after, because I was just so gutted. Yeah, the Olympiacos one stunk me. I mean, there's others that if it was going to go into a longer segment that we could all go into, but that one did sting me a lot.
Okay, James, for you, which has been the most disappointing performance of the season so far?
For me personally, Sheffield United away Lane. It was on a Monday night. I went to that game, and I flew in from Amsterdam to Manchester, trying to be a little bit close in proximity, and I took a train from Manchester to Sheffield, and even when I got to the station at Sheffield Station, you had Sheffield United fans milling around, and of course they're an excellent side with an excellent manager, and obviously I was hopeful and confident that Arsenal would win. And then going into Bramall Lane for the first time, it was one of the few grounds I'd never been to before. And, we just didn't turn up. I saw Unai Emery cutting a lonely figure out in the centre of the touchline when he came out on the pitch, and he was beckoned over by a few Arsenal fans, and he didn't come. And then when the game started, you had Sheffield United starting at 100 miles an hour, and just the fight and determination for them to go and get something out of the game. And how poorly we played. We were extremely poor, not just in terms of possession and personnel that night, but also in terms of the resistance to Sheffield United. Yes, they're a very good side, but it was as if we went to Bramall Lane and thought we just had to turn up to win. And obviously losing the game, and then people having question marks in the away end as to what's happening here. And I just thought, in terms of the effort, I mean, obviously I'm making an effort to go to every game, home or away, but I just expected Arsenal to have that little bit more fight that night, especially in a difficult away day in Sheffield, and it just didn't turn up, and it was a very much a disappointing game, which kind of, for me, it set the tone for what was going to happen. And then unfortunately, only 6 weeks later, Unai Emery was relieved of his duties.
James, do you think it was more that we didn't turn up, or do you think it was more to do with the strategy that Chris Wilder, how he set up his players?
Possibly. They were extremely determined and they were extremely well drilled, but I expected Arsenal, with the experience we had on the pitch that night, to have a little bit more of an answer and have a little bit more of vigour. And there wasn't really none of that. I didn't mind losing. I enjoy every game, win, lose or draw, especially when attending. But I expected Arsenal to have a little bit more fight about them and give a little bit more resistance. And that was the thing that was most disappointing for me, was that we didn't do that in that particular game. And I even remember outside the ground before we went in, it was if also amongst the fans of, it'll be okay, we'll win this. But obviously, a Bramall Lane on a Monday night is a difficult place to go. And unfortunately, we didn't do ourselves justice. And I believe that we let ourselves down.
Yeah. IG, for you, what's been the worst game of the season so far?
Well, as Ralph, I had a list of people to thank during the start of the show. I think I have a list of games that I can actually point out to where we have been poor this season. I think the biggest issue that has been will be the defense and the midfield. I think we never clicked as a team. But for me, there was one special game where we were all over the place, and that was Arsenal versus Manchester City. I think the first half, I don't know where our players were, and Kevin De Bruyne was just playing with our defense and midfield. So I think for me, Manchester City game was the most poor performance for us, because I think if I see any other game, I think at least we tried something. I mean, there's so many, like Arsenal versus Watford, that 2-2 game. That was like we gave up. We gave up the 2 goals scored by Aubameyang, and we let Gerard Delafeu actually run the midfield. So I think there are so many games that I can actually point out, but for me specifically is Arsenal versus Manchester City.
Godfather, what about yourself?
Yeah, the one that sticks in my mind is the 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace at home. We went 2-0 up and we looked to be coasting. And then, if you look at the goals Palace scored, one was a dubious penalty and the other one could have gone wide. We had some great shots towards the end. But the worst thing, and I've never seen an Arsenal captain do this in all my time, was when Xhaka walked off, and instead of sprinting off, sticking his head down and going, look, I've got to get off. We've got 10 minutes left. He didn't saunter off, but he didn't kind of pick up speed. And the fans quite rightly said, like, get off, get some fresh legs on. Let's try and win the game. And then, of course, we all know the rest. He gesticulated and he took his armband off, threw it towards somebody, but I don't think they caught it. It went on the deck. Thank God he didn't take off his Arsenal top. And I think he thought about it. I think he took it off, but didn't throw it away. So to me, that was, in all the years of watching Arsenal, you don't see a captain do that. And I was thinking about what kind of a character this guy must be. And I was thinking, and I always liked Emery. I think he'll do well in his next managerial appointment. But the one mistake he probably made was to ask the players to vote for their ideal captain, because that immediately gave the power base to Xhaka, and it gave the power to all of Xhaka's attitudes. And that was a perfect example. Once he went off, you could see heads drop, because they all looked up to him. And it's a bit like us two in a classroom. If you said to the kids, who do you want to be the captain of the class, they aren't going to pick the kid who works hard. They're going to pick some guy who they go, oh, he takes the mickey out the teacher, or he's a bit leery, he's a bit this and that. And we don't know why, but the players picked him, and it obviously was the wrong choice. I very much doubt whether, if I was managing them, I'd have him in my team anyway, because he's only half a player. He can play the ball around and fantastically well, but he can't defend. But it was that moment, and I did watch the interview with Emery after that, and he did say in broken English straight away, Xhaka was wrong. And then if you all remember, he didn't really apologise properly for it. And I don't know. To me, your captain has got to be a Tony Adams type character. We've had some good captains down the year, but that's got to be the guy that everybody looks up to. And when you're drawing a game that you should be winning, it should be the captain that pulls you through. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm actually surprised, Godfather. I thought you would have probably said the Olympiacos game, because we both went to the game. And,
yeah, I mean that was a gut wrencher, and it was like you kind of knew then that the season was over in terms of trophies and that, But yeah.
Okay, let me just quickly go into the chat. There's been a couple of people who've actually just come in and said a quick hello. I've got Ryan on Mr. Arsenal Podcast says, hope you're having fun, Alex, preparing for the video we are putting together. Yes, we've already put the video together. I just need to edit it, and I'll submit that video. And he's also gone to say, hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe. But I hope you're keeping safe as well, Ryan. And I've got Luca from Arsenal Vlogs who says, hi, how are you? And also the same message, hope you're keeping safe. And he says for him, the worst game so far has been the Olympiacos game. I've got Apollo from 101 who says, great chat, guys, very interesting topics. And yep, I've never forgiven Xhaka for that, and I never will. James, if George Graham were the manager, would Xhaka still be at Arsenal? Would Ozil still be at the club?
IGs.
I think James is. James?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. You mentioned about Ozil, yes?
Yeah, you know, yeah. Xhaka and Ozil, would they still be at Arsenal if George Graham was the current manager?
Do I still see him being at Arsenal next season? Was that the question?
No. If George Graham were the current manager, would Xhaka still be at Arsenal?
Hello, you're breaking up a little bit, Alex. I'll
blame Ozil for this also.
Yes.
We're back in 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Tell.
Yeah, well, I can answer that because when we won the League Cup, was it 87? George Graham had only recently taken over. We had Kenny Sansom as captain, Charlie Nicholas, and at the end of that season, he waved bye-bye to both players. So he wouldn't have got rid of Xhaka straight away because you've got to see your way through to the end of the season. But he would have got rid of Xhaka, I think. Yeah.
James, we're just saying that. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear me clearly?
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I think maybe it's a problem on my side. Yeah, once I mentioned Ozil. No, the question was if George Graham were...
Everything goes wrong when you mention Ozil.
Yeah, I won't mention his name anymore. The question was, if George Graham were the current manager, do you think the likes of Xhaka would still have remained at Arsenal?
I think in terms of Xhaka, I think that Graham would give him a chance, but if he doesn't pull his socks up, I think he would oust him. And in the case of Graham, I don't even think he would sign a player like Mesut Ozil. I don't think he would have no use for a player like Mesut Ozil. He wouldn't even entertain the notion of a player like Mesut Ozil because he was demanding, and it was about. You got to remember, this is a manager that used to take the training. Every training, he would take it, and he would be teaching this young group of players about attacking, defending, positions. So I don't even think that he would entertain the notion of signing a player like Mesut Ozil. Although I do think in the case of Xhaka, but I think Graham would have kind of read in the riot act and give him like a special kind of way of improving himself as a player before getting rid of him completely.
Okay. IG, you've been laughing in the background.
Well, I think I personally feel that the whole Xhaka incident, I think I would partly blame Xhaka, but I know why he did it. But the problem is, I think talking about Granit Xhaka, I think this whole season and probably he has been our chief chance creator. He has created the most amount of chances for Arsenal. So I think going forward, he's always been good. But since he was made the captain, I think hardly he had kept a foot wrong. I didn't see him do much mistakes like he usually does. Gets a yellow card, and it was so surprising to see him not get a yellow card since being a captain. So I think it was really. I think he was kind of being responsible too, but also I think since Mikel Arteta took over, I think the inverted fullback thing, the way he's playing, I think Xhaka taking over Bukayo Saka's place and actually covering up in the fullback position, I think Xhaka has done well. I think the team has pulled up some. We need to give credit where it is due, but the problem is the reaction to which the players actually come back from. I think the Scott Mustafi mistake against Chelsea and the way he's actually made a comeback. I think the whole Xhaka incident also wherein where the biggest problem is we don't talk about is I have actually mentioned on Canon Fodder before as well that the player abuse. The level and the amount of player abuse that the players receive on social media. Granit Xhaka, Scott Mustafi have been towards the receiving end since the final that we lost in Baku. and probably much more before that. But since Baku, it has been unbelievable, and I think so much so that they had to delete the comment section on their Instagram. I think when you threaten somebody, the fans, they threaten him on Instagram by sending him personal messages that we can kill you, we can kill your newborn daughter. I think the reasons that he gave were quite good enough, but we don't expect that, as rightfully said by Terry, we don't expect that from a captain. Shaka was responsible in the way he reacted. He could have reacted in a different way. Most probably, I think, posting something on social media, because everything started in social media. So he could have responded in the way he was actually attacked in. But I think he wasn't responsible enough. Probably he wasn't mature enough to show the level of captaincy already seen by people like Terry and the real and old Arsenal fans who've actually seen much more gritty captains. But I think this is the modern era wherein where a player loses, they put up new selfies. Where they're happy, buying new cars and taking selfies with it. I think this is the new times, and I think I'm sick of it. I'm not supporting it. But I think this is what we've got to live with.
Yeah, but I think I'm from a different generation. When I started supporting Arsenal, there was no social media. The only thing you would hear, you would go to work or to school, you would hear we're talking about what happened, on the weekend when Arsenal played. But I think these times, players, they can choose not to have a social media account. They can choose to switch it off and not have the account there. Most players have their social media controlled and managed by a third party. So they don't have to have that account. One thing you cannot control so much so is the abuse that they receive in the stadiums. That still needs to be controlled. But in regards to social media, they do not have to have an account, IG.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would really like to make a point right now, because social media right now, it's just not about popularity. It's about getting money. So players like these actually get more sponsorships and more money. Cristiano Ronaldo achieves almost a weekly wage from a single post in Instagram right now. So and he's doing that more during this lockdown period, because they get easy money. So I think that's the best way to earn right now for any social media influencer, and definitely for a footballer.
Just a quick one on that. I was very friendly with one of our ex-players years ago, who became manager of Reading, Brian McDermott, and I knew his parents very well, having bumped into them at a reserve match. And anyway, one day I was talking to his mum, and he would have been about 19 at the time, 20, and we played Tottenham. It was an evening match. I think it might have been a semi-final for the League Cup. But anyway, it was a big evening match, and Brian was warming up on the sidelines, and all he could hear apparently was the Tottenham fans singing, "We hope you break your leg" type comments. Foul, stupid comments. And Brian's mum was saying she was upset by it, but she said the players learn to just brush it off, And I think you learn that from an early age. And to be honest, if somebody was paying me the kind of money Xhaka was being paid, they can boo away. It wouldn't worry me at all, So yes, players get used to that from a young age, and it's all part of the. I'm not making light of it, because it's not nice to say that to anybody, but you just shrug your shoulders, just take it as a bit of banter, or just close your ears to it. But to try and react to it in a way that is obviously going to draw calumny upon your head, and there's your role as captain, is just silly. It's just lacking in the maturity you would expect a captain to have.
Yeah. But like James, again, I'm always in constant communication with James, and one common theme we always say, James, is that when you're on social media, you are responsible. Own your words. Things are just so easy for anyone to make up a quick account in less than 5 minutes and just send abuse across the internet.
Yeah,
and it can have really negative, effects on a player. Sorry, James. Yeah.
Well, I think we've seen recently with this, with the death of Pep Guardiola's mother, and also Boris Johnson being admitted to hospital. There are some accounts that are actually making fun of such terrible scenarios and situations, and you wonder who is behind these accounts. And the sadness of these accounts, I think a lot of them is just a cry for an attention. And you can understand in some quarters of people wanting people to, when they open an account, upload their ID, for example, because some awful things that are written. But I think in a lot of cases that people write things they would never dare say to anybody's face.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a sign of the times, but it doesn't detract from the way that you have to own your words. I mean, we're in a situation now where people that are just fans like me, like us five today, we are also fans. You have some fans who have different YouTube channels or different social media accounts, and they receive, for example, special plaques from YouTube for their certain amount of followers. They are just fans like me and you. They are just fans like me and you, but some are kind of using their popularity, if you like, to kind of push their own agendas or push their own ambitions. But you've got to remember that in any walk of life, you've got to work hard. You can't cut corners. And I think especially in the case of social media and certain fans, you have certain fans wanting to cry for attention and cut corners in order to be popular.
Yeah. Ralph, did you want to chip in quickly before we move on to the comments in the chat?
Well, I think we had this kind of conversation last week about Jack Grealish and the responsibilities of the club, because that player is an asset, and you've got a dual responsibility to look after him, and also he's got a responsibility that when he makes a mistake, he needs to learn from his mistake. My take on it is old school. So when I used to play football, it may be a wet Sunday morning or afternoon in Hackney Marshes, and there may be one or two people. You're always going to get the jeers, nothing towards the levels that the professionals get, and the professionals, because they're professionals for a reason. The way Terry says about shrug it, you have to shrug it off and play. I get that and understand it, but it's from an emotional level. When you get that every time you go to a home or away, not home, but when you play away from home, when you get it on social media now, the current players who are reliant on social media are still going to respond in an emotional way. They're still going to act under, within four walls. If somebody's sending potential death threats, or the fact that they're going to want to do something if they see you in the street, then emotionally your back is up. So yeah, the club again has responsibility. Like you mentioned, Alex, if you've got a web page or Instagram or social media, you are responsible. You've got people as well who can manage it for you as well. You don't have to engage. You don't have to engage. It's quite easy for us to say that, but again, it's an emotional content that it depends on how that person tends to take it on. So yeah, it's just another step up in the evolution of football, where from the terraces, if you remember, Johnny Barnes had a banana chucked at him. This is a totally different kind of thing, but it's the same kind of level of abuse, to now where it's social media. So that's the next level. How do you deal with it? It's down to the club, and then in the end, it's down to the individual. So it's just another evolution. We just have to be as responsible.
I see you bursting to say something.
But Ralph, the whole Xhaka incident, would you blame Arsenal or Unai Emery in any way for it?
With Xhaka, as Terry mentioned, the responsibility is down on the captain. But then in the interim, after the event, it's down to the manager, and it's down to the club. That's the way that I view it. If you want to talk about how you try and take responsibilities into account, when you're on the field of play, you're responsible. In rugby, I'm living in the rugby land, for example, when you tackle someone, if you take them physically from when they jump, you are responsible from the time you make that contact. Before, they used to do spear tackling, which means that you actually physically aim your opponent and at an angle which can do physical harm. So the refereeing or the rugby body has looked at that and said, right, the person who actually takes the tackle is responsible. So as much as you're training and you're engaged emotionally, you are still, when you're engaged, you're still responsible for the way that you act into a tackle. Football's a different thing altogether, but you can still go in late, you can still do the professional tackle. Therefore, if you're the last man, you don't want that person to score, you take him out. You're responsible, but that's your action.
I blame the manager for choosing Xhaka before and after. I mean,
well,
I was really surprised. I thought he would never play for Arsenal again.
Yeah.
If I were the manager, he would never play for Arsenal again.
Yeah.
It shows that lack of character.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have played for Arsenal again. So
I think.
Go on. Sorry.
I think I completely agree with you as well. But the problem is that in place of Xhaka, most probably I think Torreira was injured at that moment of time. He was on, he was off somewhere down the line. So I think I don't think so. He had much more options to be played in his position. I think the problem is that it's not that our finance is something like Manchester City or a club that plays Champions League football every season. I think he was stuck in a situation wherein he's got two midfielders. He has a Joe Willock and he's got Dani Ceballos. There were a lot of problems. I think the manager was a scapegoat in that situation, but I did not like the way he reacted to it, because I think he came to the media. He said that he was wrong, but then he also came. There was certain news the relatively next week that he was speaking to Xhaka. He's okay. I think in every match day he used to say that yes, I spoke to Xhaka, because everyone. First of all, the problem is that the whole Arsenal fan base is pissed that he was made the captain in the first place. But my whole issue is with the fan base is. First of all, I think if you guys had a problem with Granit Xhaka being named as the captain, I think Unai Emery thought of it. Yes, that could have been a problem. So the next thing, he gives players a chance to name one. So now, if the manager's choice is Xhaka, you guys may feel wrong about it, but I don't think so. He kept a foot wrong since being the captain. So I think he should not have gotten the stick. I think if we are getting behind the same player right now, most of the fans have not forgotten what Xhaka did, the finger incident, but they are behind Xhaka right now to at least show up and at least try to hold the midfield for us and at least cover for Bukayo Saka right now. So I think if the fans have actually belief in Xhaka, I think they should have belief in him at that point of time as well. And I think it's how a footballer comes back. If not for Arsenal, he would have come back for some other club.
Yeah. You know what I'd say to that? If you remember the terrible match against Birmingham where Eduardo got that terrible injury, and you probably all remember the image of our captain at the time, Gallas, sitting down on the centre circle. Now, that's not what Tony Adams would have done. He would have been up there rallying the guys, talking to them, physically lifting them up. Come on, we can do this. And instead, the abiding image of that match is Gallas with, sitting on the ground with his knees in his arms. And he basically said, oh, the world is bad and I've had enough. That's not what your captain's for. Your captain is when you're facing massive adversity to lift the team. And I'm surprised that when you appoint a captain that they don't have a system of sitting them down in a room and saying, look, you're going to come upon times when Arsenal are losing and they're going to need you above everybody else to lift the boys on the pitch. And again, our abiding image now of Xhaka is of him being, yes, the fans were rude to him, of course they were, but you've got to step above that because you are the Arsenal captain.
But
How
Terry,
many of those fans would love to be the Arsenal captain?
But Terry, if I can interject there, I remember that day for as long as I care to. The reaction after that, Ian Wright did say that he preferred to have a player like Gallas because he showed his true emotion on that day. So as gutting as it was that result was, the shift of blame had changed from what happened to Eduardo to the way that Gallas was captaining the side. To me, he was never an Arsenal player. Or we just got him up pretty much on the cheap, and he came in and Arsenal probably thought, well, you know, this is the next best thing. But what he did there, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The fact that you want a captain, we didn't have to captain like Vieira or McClintock or Adams. You know, we had Gallas. Gallas didn't have that level of responsibility. He acted in the way that he knows. You know, the way that he acted, he probably thought that he took a bit of Chelsea with him.
But that's the problem though, because like now, who or which one player can you say, oh, right, clearly this guy should be the captain? There are no players in the Arsenal squad you can say he should be the captain. That's the problem.
But that's because the team now has become inherently leaders. Again, in the Invincibles era, every player from goalkeeper to striker was a potential leader. If there was a midweek game, you knew pretty much who was going to lead it. If Vieira wasn't there, because sometimes Vieira got sent off, you knew it was going to be Henry, or you knew it was going to be Bergkamp. You knew there's going to be one potential person who's going to actually lead that team.
Yeah, but we don't have that now.
Sorry?
We don't have that now.
No,
there's no clear candidates there.
Yeah, we don't have a standout. I'm the one who's going to, you know, it falls on me. I'm the one. I put my hand up. I'll lead the team out. And no matter what the decision is, I'm willing to take responsibility. We don't have one definitive captain.
Right, James, I think James wants to say something. I need to go into the chat. James, do you want to say something very quickly before we move on?
Yeah, what I wanted to add was I think Xhaka was selected because you have to remember he captained Mönchengladbach and he captained Switzerland. So obviously Emery was looking with someone with captain experience. And also I speak to many different players and managers. A captain isn't just on the pitch. I've spoken to many players who have spoken about players they've played with where they could go to that captain and discuss about life off the pitch. It's not just about off it. And you wonder if the captaincy of Mönchengladbach was enough for Xhaka, and if the captaincy of Arsenal a little bit bridged too far. And Ralph says about the Invincibles that all of them were different characters with a winning mentality. We now have a group of players that kind of run the shop a little bit. We have one player on an obscene wage that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We have another player who, although he scores goals, is having Instagram posts with fellow professionals and laughing when asked if he's going to sign a contract extension. And this is what I mean about, you know, the players running the shop. We need to get back to the manager and the backroom staff and the board running the show. And that's going to take that's going to take a while. It's going to take time. I think it may even take a season or two, but this is what I mean. We can help ourselves going forward by not just identifying players, but also identifying characters. I see, following a lot of Arsenal fans on social media, every £50 million pound player for the summer. What about looking at closer to home at our youth ranks? As Terry will know, in the late 80s, in the mid to late 80s, we had the likes of Paul Davis, Martin Hayes, Kevin Campbell, David Rocastle, Paul Merson. They all came through at once. Yeah. And they went on to form a fantastic ethos of a side that won in '89. Also Adams as well, won in '89, and also in '91. We can look. I hope that Arsenal look closer to home before spending money in a frivolous way this summer, or even later this.
Yeah. And also, currently, we apparently have one of the best crops of young players coming through. I read recently when they were talking to one of these Chelsea guys, and they said, "Who was your most difficult opponent?" And he said, "Emile Smith-Rowe of Arsenal." So we've got some cracking players coming through. That Balogun guy looks very tasty as well as a forward. And I totally agree. It's got to be about teamwork and attitude, because 11 individuals won't win it for you. A team will.
No. quickly go back into the chat. There's been some comments that we've kind of missed out on. Ryan says, Frankfurt home match. The tension in the air that night, you just knew something was going to happen if Emery didn't get the result. Also, I'd never seen the Emirates that empty. Also goes on, it was clear that Xhaka wasn't the player's pick for captain. But from what I understand, I saw a segment from Gary Neville, and he's talking about his experience of that one experience of managing. He said in Spain, the managers or the head coach, that is a common theme that they pick 5 captains. So Emery's come over here with that same kind of philosophy of choosing five captains, and it didn't work. It didn't translate over here. I think as well.
No, you're absolutely right, Alex. I mean,
that's all going, James.
Yeah, no, Alex is absolutely right, and I'm convinced that in the case of Unai Emery, he had 5 captains at Sevilla. They were all captains in the sense of the collective. I mean, this is the team that won the Europa League 3 times in a row. It's not a fluke. And the collectiveness, that particular group of players all taking on the mantle. And if you look at those players like Jesus Navas, who played for Manchester City and was maligned in some quarters by some Premier League watchers, he was also captain of Sevilla. And also, Kutroviak, I think, who also played for Paris Saint-Germain, was also a captain of Sevilla at one point. And Alex is absolutely right. It didn't translate over here. And I think it's something which cost Unai Emery dear. And Ryan makes a great point about the Frankfurt match. I was also at that match. And the atmosphere as well, with no away fans, but yet Frankfurt fans that had forced their way into the corporate section. And when they scored those 2 goals, it was as if they were in attendance because they was all in the corporate ring. And the subs that Frankfurt made in that game changed that game. I mean, Renault in that game made some tremendous saves, and Aubameyang went off laughing because we thought the game was won. And then Frankfurt made two substitutions and turned the game on its head.
Yeah. Back in the chat, Apollo goes on to say that social media has really, really changed our club, and not for the best, it's for the worst. Personally,
yeah, no, that's a hell of a comment, and a great comment as well. That it has changed the club. As sad as it is, and obviously Terry will know, being the elder statesman, and you guys too. What that comment that was just made is spot on. It has changed the club, and not necessarily for the better. I mean, I know that times have changed, but thankfully, there's still many a Gooner, old and young, where the standard and the brotherhood that we used to have, that's not gone completely. Fortunately, it's not gone completely at the moment, which is something we can be grateful for.
Yeah, and Paulo goes on to say, I think he's just probably alluding to the point that Eltel and Ralph was making. Ian Wright talked about how hard it is not to listen to the banter from the crowd. Some players really struggle with it.
Yeah. I think that's correct as well. You're gonna. We all know about banter. Even the word itself is banned in certain workplaces because it's deemed that they could be offensive depending on the level of relationship that you have with people. So when you have banter from clubs, and you have them on a match by match basis, and you're getting it not just in the away corner. You're getting it when you go to away matches. You're getting it on social media. You may be just walking down the street. I was listening to Righty actually a while back, from last week, when he said how actually tell I was reading his autobiography, a piece of autobiography. He said that how in the street, when he walks down the street with his partner and his kids, there's fans come up to him and barges misses the one son because they want a picture. They don't ask for permission, because it's all pretty much about getting a selfie with a celeb or with an ex-player. That nicety that we were talking about last week about players not having that connection. It's understandable, because if you're being bantered 1 minute and all of a sudden you want the same person who's giving you banter to have a selfie with you, your mind's thinking, where's your loyalties lie?
Yeah. Okay, let me quickly go back in the chat. I just want to wrap up the segment of the Easy Talk. Because I think IG's the Minister of Information is about to drop off to sleep. Fans should have a mem and a name and shame website or Twitter page. So for everyone who has abused a footballer or fan, should have their name in lights. I would vote for that. I would vote for that.
Yeah.
But I think definitely there needs to be more stringent measures, just to make it more difficult for you to open up, a Twitter account or a Facebook page. Use your ID card. Without that, you can't open up, those social media accounts. It's too easy. It's too easy.
You need a proper trial as well, so you can actually know who it is, and you can also sanction them.
Yeah. And Ryan says, Kenny Dalglish has been taken to hospital after being tested positive for the virus, but he is showing no symptoms. Just broke on the news. Ryan, thanks for that breaking news. Just a couple more before we wrap this up. Gallas was the best number 10 we ever had. Yeah, that must be a joke, Lumbercam.
Someone's been on the sauce there.
Just like his name.
I like it. Banter. That's banter.
Even better than Ozil?
Just two more comments on the chat. The team is full of weak-minded, overpaid, comfortable pansies.
Yeah.
Is that a real PC kind of term to use?
Bellerin is the optimum of the garbage we have at Arsenal. Guys, I'm going to call this EASYTALK the 600th video on Canon TV. Again, for myself, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who has ever contributed, appeared, been interviewed, been visited by myself. Big thank you to everyone there. James, your interviews.
Yes, man.
I can't keep up, James.
Okay, I'll just give a quick update. Gooners might well be happy to know my interview with former Arsenal player Charlie Gilmore will be released, I believe, on Wednesday. Upcoming interviews also include the likes of. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And also upcoming interviews include the likes of Luke Chadwick and Brian Dean, and as well as a few surprises too. So for viewers that don't yet know, you can follow me on @JamesRoHAN, and also you can read my interviews in the links on my bio and also on worldfootballindex.com.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
Guys, you have a quick question for
Thank you.
James? IG, Minister of Information, you have a question for James? No?
I actually don't have a question. I don't have a question. I just want to clap as well. But I think the ones who did, they are actually doing the show on a laptop. So cheers, James. I'm also happy.
I've got a quick question for Raz there. Raz,
Yes,
you know
mate.
you were talking about that spear tackle.
Yes.
And they go for the body, do they? Somewhere where it hurts.
Well, they do that in the scrum, but the spear tackle was pretty much it was a.
They all know what's coming. My wife is very, very good at that tackle.
You know what? I'm gonna just give one more thing, because last week I showed Alex a new segment. I've got this one. This one, everybody knows about this one. This one was the most famous time when we did 89. I watched 89 again for about the 4th, 5th time. The way that George Graham psychologically took the team up on the day, and also the fans. I think one of the fans who jumped over the barrier. I think it was Kevin Campbell. I'm sure there's a story about Kevin Campbell. He said that he was amongst the fans behind the cop end, and when the first goal went in, he jumped over the fence, and the cops were like pushing them back because obviously they couldn't believe it. So I'm sure there's a story around there. Maybe James might be able to substantiate that at some point, sometime. Okay. But from us, appreciate it. Much love to you all.
Well, listen, James, absolutely. Thank you again for coming back on Channel 4 TV. And like I said from the get-go, we're trying to take the opportunities, because once you really blow up, the opportunities for you to come on Channel 4 TV are going to be thin to none. But I want to say a big thank you for being one of our supporters, contributors, and a good friend as well on Channel 4 TV, James.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Nice one, mate. IG and the original Godfather, the Dark Arts Master.
Well, I have to with all those spear tackles coming in and those 2-footed tackles.
Oh dear. Anyway, listen, guys. If you've been wondering who or what you've been watching Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over the world. And a big thank you from Cannon Fodder TV.